Everybody wants to know, how did we get the Bible? Where did it come from? It didn't just drop from heaven. There were people that God used to produce it. How did that happen? Well, in this course, we're going to focus specifically on the Old Testament. And we are going to begin with inspiration, of course. But we're going to be talking about inspiration in relationship to what scholars know, by virtue of looking at manuscripts, happened with the text. We know that certain books were written in stages or were edited. How do we understand inspiration in light of what we actually see with manuscripts? Once we cover that, we'll move to canon. Now, canon or canonicity is the topic or the subject, the problem in some cases, of how do we know which books, for sure, ought to be recognized as inspired? Some books were debated. We'll get into all that in this course. After that, we'll go to copying and manuscript transmission. Now, we're going to be looking at a lot of manuscripts in this course, and I will show you things in the manuscripts where scribes made mistakes. In some cases, they even corrected their own mistakes. And specifically, we're going to be taking a look at the Dead Sea Scrolls and their importance for this whole process of transmission. We'll talk about manuscript discoveries, how to date manuscripts, how scholars approach all of that field. And it's one of the more fascinating things in biblical studies. After we get done with that, we'll talk about specifically, well, once you get out of the ancient period, then what happened? What is this thing that we call the traditional Hebrew text, the Masoretic text? Who were the Masoretes? What did they do? Once we get out of the ancient and medieval periods up into the modern era, we'll talk about what modern scholars do with all those manuscripts. What's their actual discipline? What do they produce in their work? The things that they do produce are called critical editions of the Hebrew Bible. And they're the copies of the Hebrew Bible that you would use if you took a Hebrew course or a book study in the Hebrew Bible. Where did those come from? Who did that work? And finally, we'll talk about translation philosophies. Not all English translations sound the same. Well, there are reasons for that. Some of them are textual, we'll talk about those in the course, and some of them also relate to just philosophically how scholars approach the whole enterprise of translation. So I want you to join me in this fascinating course on how we got the Old Testament. I think you're really going to enjoy it.